creative continuity. We bring the convention to you.
How again? Special edition. I'm here with the legendary Chris Claremont. I asked a question, but I just got to make this statement. To me, you are the best thing that ever happened to X-Men. Your stories are incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. What got you onto the X-Men? Into the mutant world, I should say.
When I first started working for Marvel as what we called in those days a gopher, one of my jobs was proofreading, and one of the first things that came into the office to be proofread was the X-Men by Roy Thomas and Neal Adams. And quite frankly, one look at those pages of original art, and it was revolutionary in terms of how you present character, how you present storytelling, the excitement of the conflict, visual conflict, and let's face it, it was really cool they were up against Sentinels. So in that context, I was hooked from the very beginning. And then about 5 years later, when I was actually on staff at Marvel, Len Wein and Dave Cockrum were plotting out Giant Size #1. And since my desk was right outside Len's office, I couldn't help watching what they were doing, hearing what they were doing, and being me, I just horned in and wanted to find out more. And when Len unfortunately had to relinquish the book a month, 2 months later, and he needed someone to write it, I kind of ran over everybody else who was in the way. Got in the door and said, I want this book, and that was that.
Do you have a particular favorite character that you enjoyed writing for?
In the X-Men?
Yes.
Realistically speaking, I've known these characters for 40 years. At that point, I don't play favorites anymore. They're all equally intriguing, equally exciting, equally visually dynamic. So my basic answer is the character I haven't created yet. And, you know, one day that could lead to Gambit, the next day it can lead to, let's see, who is interested? You know, you have no idea.
Right. And what was some of the inspiration behind stories like the Dark Phoenix, for instance? Where did that creativity come from? What inspired that?
Same thing that inspires every story. You have a bunch of characters, you have a circumstance, you have an issue that's due out in 30 days, all the pieces come together and you hit gold. I was lucky. I hit gold quite a few times. But when you're working with Dave Cockrum and John Byrne and Paul Smith, among many others, it's easy. Coming up with great ideas or building off of their talent and their brilliance, visual brilliance, you know, it's surprisingly not hard to create stories to match.
So how much liberty did you have in terms of the setup for the story?
What do you mean by liberty?
Could you kill off a character if you wanted to? Could you?
You mean like Jean Grey?
Yes.
Yes.
With no, did you have to bring that in front of them, or they just like just go with it?
Well, it was. Len had already decided with the first issue to kill off Thunderbird, and his feeling was he could either spend 5 years building up Thunderbird's character and making him a relevant, resonant force to the readership, and then kill him off. Or you could just do it as a shock. And since the book was a quarterly, he felt it would take too long to spend the time to build up the character to the extent he felt was warranted. So he did it as a shock. And holy cow, with the second issue, we've killed off one of the major cast. My feeling with Jean was originally John and I had no intention of killing her. Bluntly, 6 billion counts of homicide require an equivalent punishment. And this is a case where Jim Shooter stepped in as editor-in-chief and made us see the light. So the alternative, from my perspective, was we either send her to jail and then the book becomes Jean's in prison, the X-Men bust her out, the Shi'ar go after them, the Avengers go after them, everybody goes after them, they recapture Jean, they put her back in jail, the X-Men bust her out. That, it was a nice idea, but it would quickly become boring. Or we kill her. And I decided, bring the story to an end. And we killed her. And the idea was her death would resonate because it would be the death that was permanent. We would not bring her back. We would not say, surprise, we were just fooling. She would be dead, she would stay dead, life would move on, and we could then do issues where we did it to Jean, dare we do it to Storm?
Right.
Suddenly for the team, everyone was at risk. And in a way, Marvel has spent the next 40 years trying to reassert that paradigm, culminating in Old Man Logan and the death of Wolverine. Mm-hmm. The challenge, the reality for Marvel is that we've killed off so many characters and brought them back that it will be hard for the company to convince the readers that this is legit. And if it is legit, then how do you balance out his death in the comics with his very much being alive in the movies, and which has precedence?
Right.
So, Axel's cut himself a serious challenge here. It will be fascinating to see how it plays out over the next years, decades, whatever.
Well, now that brings me to Wolverine. As a co-creator of the character...
No, the creators are Len Wein and actually Herb Trimpe.
Oh, okay.
My advantage was I came in with his third appearance and defined him from that point on.
Oh, okay.
But the credit for creating him goes to Len.
Okay, okay. As one who redefined the character, what was your take on the film adaptation of the character?
Since I wrote the memo that convinced Fox that the X-Men was a viable concept when they were about to put the whole project in a turnaround, I guess you could say it's all my fault anyway. When you've got a Hugh Jackman playing the role, that's all the justification you need.
Right.
It's a brilliant actor with a defining role in his career, and over the last 15 years he's proved it again and again, and I suspect will continue to prove it for as long as he wants to play the part. Present work is actually in prose, not in comics, and that takes a lot longer than doing comics. First you have to finish the novel, then you have to find a publisher who will want to fork up money to pay for it, and that could be a year, 2 years. Fans can find me on Facebook or at chrisclaremont.com.
All right, Creative Continuity signing off with the legendary Chris Claremont. Thank you, Chris.
You're more than welcome.